There's a knight sitting by a bonfire in the undead settlement, humming a tune to himself. He's wearing a suit of armor shaped like an onion, and he's staring into a fire that refuses to fade. His voice is warm, jovial, almost impossibly cheerful for a world as broken as this. This is a story about a knight who is kind, honorable, and loyal to a fault, and whose greatest act of friendship is also his most tragic. Tonight, I'm going to tell you Siegward's complete story. From the moment you meet him at that first bonfire, to his final act of mercy in the profaned capital. This is a story about friendship, duty, and the quiet heroism of keeping your word, even when the world has given you every reason to break it. So settle in, grab a nice Siegbrow if you have one, and let's walk through one of the most bittersweet tales in the Dark Souls universe. The land of Catarina is a place of vivid memory and high spirits, often described as a vibrant kingdom that stands in stark contrast to the grim, greying landscapes of the rest of the world. Its people are famously known for their distinctive suits of armor, which feature a bulbous, layered design that has earned them the enduring and somewhat mocking nickname of Onion Knights. To the uninitiated, this rounded silhouette appears comical or even clumsy, leading many to underestimate the martial prowess of those who wear it. However, the culture of Catarina is one that values substance over mere appearance, and its knights carry themselves with a dignity that is entirely independent of the jests made at their expense. The peculiar shape of the Catarina armor is not a stylistic whim, but a masterpiece of engineering, designed for the harsh realities of life and death combat. Every curve and swell of the plating is meticulously crafted to ensure that incoming strikes, whether from a heavy mace or a piercing thrust, are parried and deflected away from the wearer's vital organs. It is an armor built for endurance and survival, favoring the ability to weather a storm over the vanity of a slim profile. This practical approach to defense reflects the pragmatic nature of the people themselves, who understand that staying alive is the first step toward any victory. Beyond the steel and stone of their military equipment, the culture of Catarina is defined by a rare and precious joviality. In a world where the sun is fading and the undead curse has stripped most of humanity of their purpose, the Onion Knights remain stubbornly optimistic. They are famous for their love of festivities, their appreciation for a well-brewed drink, and their booming, hearty laughter. This is not a sign of ignorance or simple-mindedness, but rather a deliberate choice to find joy in the present moment, no matter how dark the horizon may seem. This jovial exterior often hides an iron-willed resolve that is the true hallmark of a knight from this region. While they may appear to be wandering adventurers focused on their next meal, they are governed by a strict code of honor and an unwavering sense of duty. When a knight of Catarina gives their word, it is as unyielding as the heavy plating they wear. They do not easily abandon a task once it has been started, often spending long hours or even days in deep contemplation before committing to a course of action. The optimism of Catarina serves as a rare light in a dying world, providing a sense of humanity that is often lost in the quest for souls and power. They remind those around them that there is still something worth fighting for beyond mere survival. Their presence on the battlefield is often a source of inspiration as they face cosmic horrors with a toast and a smile. They represent the endurance of the human spirit, proving that even when the fire fades, the warmth of companionship and the strength of a promise can remain. In many ways, the Knights of Catarina are the perfect antithesis to the cold, calculating nature of the lords and gods they serve. They do not seek to manipulate the flame or rewrite the laws of existence for their own gain. They are content to be honorable soldiers, traveling across the fractured lands to fulfill their personal oaths. They carry the spirit of their homeland with them in every step, ensuring that the legacy of Catarina, one of strength, humor, and resolve, will be remembered long after the kingdoms of Lothric have crumbled into dust. Before the bells of awakening tolled and he was summoned as unkindled, Siegward was already a renowned figure within the knightly orders of Catarina. He was a veteran of many journeys. Long before the world became a jumbled mess of converging timelines, his reputation was not built on flashy displays of magic or speed, but on a terrifyingly consistent patience and a mastery of the heavy weapons favored by his people. He was a knight who understood that most battles are won through preparation and the ability to outlast the opponent. Siegward was defined by his unique ability to maintain his composure in the face of absolute despair. While other knights might have been driven to madness by the sight of the abyss or the encroaching dark, Siegward would often find a comfortable place to sit and enjoy a fine brew. This habit was not a sign of laziness, it was a psychological defense mechanism. By focusing on the small, tangible pleasures of life, he kept his mind anchored to his humanity. He knew that the moment a knight forgets the taste of a good drink or the warmth of a fire is the moment they begin to go hollow. His life before his arrival in Lothric was marked by a series of quiet, heroic deeds that never made it into the grand histories of the lords. He was the type of knight who would stop to help a stranger with a broken cart or share his rations with a starving village, all while remaining humble about his contributions. This selflessness earned him a deep respect among his peers, who saw him as the quintessential onion knight. He embodied the idea that a warrior's true strength is measured by their kindness toward others, not just their skill with a blade. It was during these earlier travels that Siegward developed his famous habit of deep thinking. He was never one to rush headlong into a trap or a dangerous situation without first considering every possible outcome. This led to his trademark humming, a sound that became synonymous with his presence. To those who did not know him, it might have seemed as though he was confused, but to those who fought alongside him, it was the sound of a master tactician weighing the risks. This patience allowed him to survive encounters that had claimed the lives of much faster and more aggressive warriors. His connection to the culinary arts also began long ago, as he believed that a well-nourished knight was a formidable one. He spent years perfecting his recipe for Estus soup, a hearty meal that could restore both the body and the spirit of those who consumed it. For Siegward, cooking was an act of service, a way to provide comfort in a world that was becoming increasingly cold and indifferent. This nurturing spirit would eventually become a vital part of his identity, as he moved through the ruins of the world, offering a bowl of soup to anyone who crossed his path. The Siegward, who arrived in the kingdom of Lothric, was a man who had already lived a lifetime of service and honor. He was not a young, hot-headed adventurer seeking glory, but a seasoned veteran returning to fulfill the most important promise of his life. His history as a renowned knight provided him with the foundation he needed to face the Lords of Cinder. He carried the weight of his past with a light heart, ready to use every ounce of his experience and every drop of his resolve to see his mission through to the very end. The giant was a figure of tragic nobility, a descendant of an ancient conqueror who possessed a strength that could level mountains. Despite his intimidating stature and the bloody history of his lineage, Yorm was a man of deep and abiding compassion. When the people of the profaned capital found themselves without a leader and living in fear of the various threats that lurked in the dark, they turned to the giant they had once despised. They asked him to lead them, not because they loved him, but because they needed his shield to survive. He was a selfless king who took his responsibilities to his subjects with a solemnity that bordered on the divine. Yorm did not rule from a distant palace or hide behind walls of gold. He fought on the front lines of every conflict, placing his massive body between his people and the horrors of the world. He wielded a great shield of incredible size, using it to absorb the blows that would have crushed a mortal army. This dedication was a testament to his character, as he sought to prove through his actions that he was more than the conqueror his bloodline suggested. However, the relationship between Yorm and his people was always strained by a deep-seated undercurrent of fear and resentment. The citizens of the profaned capital could never truly forget that Yorm was a giant, an outsider whose very existence was a reminder of their own vulnerability. Even as he bled for them and saved their city time and time again, there were those who whispered against him in the shadows. Yorm was aware of this coldness, yet he never allowed it to embitter him. He continued to serve with a quiet, lonely dignity, finding his only solace in the heat of battle. The tragedy of Yorm's reign was the eventual loss of the people he had sacrificed everything to protect. When the profaned flame erupted, it consumed the inhabitants of the city in a fire that was as unnatural as it was absolute. Yorm, who had ascended to become a lord of Cinder in a desperate attempt to put the flame to rest, returned to find his kingdom a charred graveyard of ash and bone. The people he had loved, who had never truly loved him back, were gone, leaving him as the king of a dead city. Before this ultimate loss, Yorm was a warrior of unparalleled skill, using a massive machete to cleave through any foe that dared to threaten his borders. He was a mountain of iron and determination, a ruler who believed that a king's only true purpose was to serve as a bulwark for his people. He carried the heavy weight of his crown with a grace that was rare among the lords of his time, never seeking personal glory or the expansion of his power. He only wanted his city to be safe, a goal that would eventually drive him to the brink of madness. His selfless nature would eventually be his undoing, as the burden of being a protector in a world that refuses to be saved is a weight that even a giant cannot carry forever. Yorm was a man who gave everything and received nothing in return but silence and ash. Yet in the period before the fire faded, he stood as a beacon of what a true leader should be. He was the giant who cared too much, a king whose heart was as large as his body, and whose story would become one of the most heartbreaking chronicles in the history of the dying world. Long ago, during a time when the world still held some semblance of order, Yorm the Giant and Siegward of Catarina formed a bond that transcended the boundaries of race and status. This was a friendship built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared values, a rare connection between a colossal king and a wandering knight. They likely met on a battlefield or along the lonely roads of a kingdom in decline, finding in each other a kindred spirit who valued honor and loyalty above all else. For Yorm, Siegward was the only person who did not look at him with fear or hidden resentment. Their bond was forged in the quiet moments between conflicts, shared over the very bruise that Siegward would later become famous for. In the presence of the Onion Knight, the giant king could set aside the heavy burden of his crown and the expectations of his people. Siegward's joviality and his refusal to be intimidated by Yorm's size allowed the giant to feel human for the first time in his long and lonely life. They were brothers in arms, two warriors who understood the weight of responsibility and the necessity of finding a reason to smile in the face of the encroaching dark. As the years passed and the influence of the abyss and the profaned flame began to grow, Yorm began to fear for his own sanity. He knew that even the strongest resolve could be eroded by the weight of the ages and the corrupting nature of the fire. He was terrified of the possibility that he might one day lose his mind and become a monster that would threaten the very people he had sworn to protect. In his moment of greatest vulnerability, he turned to the only person he trusted with his life and his legacy, Siegward, to ensure that he would never become a source of terror. Yorm took his two legendary Storm Ruler swords, weapons specifically designed to harness the power of the wind to bring a giant to his knees. He kept one for himself, perhaps as a reminder of his mortality, but he gave the other to Siegward. This was a gesture of absolute, terrifying trust. Yorm was handing his friend the only tool in existence capable of killing him, effectively placing his fate in the hands of the knight from Catarina. This act was the ultimate expression of their friendship. It was a recognition that Siegward was the only man with the iron resolve and the purity of heart required to do what might eventually become necessary. Yorm did not want a stranger or a rival to be the one to end him. He wanted it to be the man who had toasted to his health and shared his fire. The Storm Ruler was not just a sword, it was a physical manifestation of the love and respect they held for one another. A heavy burden that Siegward accepted without hesitation. Their friendship serves as a poignant reminder that even in a world defined by cosmic horror and the literal end of time, human connections can still flourish. The bond between the giant and the knight was the one thing that the fading fire could not touch. It was an alliance that defied the coldness of the profaned capital and the cynicism of the lords. Together, they represented a version of the world where honor and loyalty were still the strongest forces in existence. A legacy that would eventually lead Siegward on a journey across a dying continent to fulfill a promise made in the name of love. Part 5. The Promise Made in Fire. The promise made between Siegward and Yorm was a solemn pact of mercy-killing, a heavy oath that would define the rest of Siegward's life. Standing before the giant king, the Knight of Catarina vowed that if Yorm ever failed to fulfill his duty, or if his mind was finally consumed by the madness of the fire, Siegward would be the one to put him to rest. This was not a threat or an act of aggression, but a final, ultimate gesture of friendship. It was a commitment to ensure that Yorm would never be forced to exist as a mindless monster or a hollowed-out husk of his former self. This vow was made with a clarity and a weight that only two warriors of their caliber could understand. Siegward knew that by accepting the Storm Ruler, he was accepting a burden that would likely lead to his own death. To face a giant in combat, even with a specialized weapon, was a task of near suicidal proportions. Yet he did not flinch or seek to avoid the responsibility. He understood that a true friend does not just stand by you in your glory. They are there to provide the final mercy when the glory is gone. The nature of the promise was deeply personal, a secret shared between brothers that the rest of the world would never fully comprehend. To the people of the profaned capital, Siegward would have appeared as a regicide or an assassin, but to Yorm, he was the only one who could grant him the true death he deserved. The promise was a shield against the horror of an eternal, corrupted existence. It was the guarantee that even if everything else in the world failed, Yorm would have one person who would hold him to his honor. Siegward's dedication to this promise is what drove him to rise as unkindled when the bells of awakening rang. While other champions sought the thrones of the lords for power, or to link the fire once more, Siegward's internal compass pointed only toward the profaned capital. He did not care about the fate of the world or the politics of Lothric. He only cared about the giant he had called his friend. The promise was the anchor that kept him from going hollow, providing him with a singular, unwavering purpose in a world of shifting motivations. The weight of this oath is what explains Siegward's legendary patience throughout the journey. He could not afford to make a mistake or fall to a lesser foe, for if he died, there would be no one left to fulfill the promise to Yorm. He had to be perfect. He had to be the knight that Yorm believed him to be. Every bruise shared and every demon fought was just a stepping stone on the long and difficult road to the throne room of the giant. He was a man possessed by a duty that was as heavy as his armor. Ultimately, the promise represents the highest form of human honor in the Dark Souls universe. It is a commitment that survives death and the literal unraveling of time and space. Siegward's journey is the story of a man who refused to break his word, even when the world itself was breaking around him. He carried the Storm Ruler not as a weapon of conquest, but as a key to a door he hoped he would never have to open. It was a pact made in fire and sealed in blood, a testament to a friendship that was stronger than the Lords of Cinder themselves. Section 2, A World Gone Wrong. Part 6, The Return of the Lords of Cinder. When the first flame began to flicker and the Age of Fire reached its ultimate breaking point, the ancient bells of Lothric tolled to awaken the Lords of Cinder from their slumber. These were the great heroes and monarchs who had previously linked the fire, their souls having been consumed to provide the world with a few more centuries of warmth. Among those called back to their physical forms was Yorm the giant. He rose from his tomb not as the noble protector he once was, but as a being of ash and redirected purpose, summoned to return to his throne and sacrifice himself once again to maintain the failing order. However, the world that Yorm returned to was a nightmare of his own making. He found his profaned capital a silent, charred ruin, the air still heavy with the scent of the fire that had consumed his people. The sight of his dead kingdom broke what remained of his spirit. Yorm realized that his previous sacrifice had been in vain. He had linked the fire to save his people, but the act itself had triggered the very eruption that destroyed them. The irony was absolute and soul-crushing. He was a Lord of Cinder who had burned his own kingdom to the ground in a desperate attempt to protect it. Faced with this horrific reality, Yorm refused to answer the call of the bells. He did not march to Lothric to take his place on the throne, nor did he seek to save the dying world a second time. Instead, he retreated into the deepest part of his ruined capital, sitting upon his massive throne in a state of catatonic despair. He became a silent guardian of a graveyard, a colossal husk of a man who had lost his reason for being. He abandoned the shield he had once used to protect others, choosing instead to wield his great machete with a mindless, destructive violence. Yorm's refusal to return created a void in the ritual of the fire, contributing to the instability of the world. He became a Lord of Cinder in name only, a being who possessed the power to sustain the flame, but lacked the will to do so. He sat in the dark, surrounded by the gold and the ash of his former subjects, waiting for the end that he had once fought so hard to prevent. The nobility that had defined his first life was replaced by a hollowed-out nihilism, as he no longer believed the world was worth saving. His presence in the profaned capital served as a beacon for the unkindled, who were tasked with bringing the lords back to their thrones by force if necessary. To the rest of the world, Yhorm was a derelict god, a monster that needed to be harvested for its soul. But to those who knew his history, he was a tragic figure who had been asked to give too much. His return was not a resurrection, it was a sentencing. He was forced to witness the total failure of his life's work before being asked to burn once again for a world that had forgotten him. This state of brokenness is what finally triggered the ancient promise. As Yhorm sat on his throne, radiating the heat of a dying star, his old friend Siegward was making his way toward him. The giant's retreat was the signal that the mercy killing was now required. Yhorm had failed his duty not out of malice, but out of a grief so profound that it had unmade him. He was a lord of cinder who could no longer see the light, and his only hope for peace lay in the hands of the knight who was currently navigating the treacherous path to his throne room. Part 7. Siegward arrives in the undead settlement. We first encounter Siegward of Catarina in the undead settlement, a place of crumbling buildings and twisted, hollowed inhabitants. He is found in a state of characteristic contemplation, standing before a complex lift mechanism that seems to defy his understanding. His famous humming echoes through the stone tower, a sound of deep, methodical thought that many players initially mistake for a sign of low intelligence or simple confusion. However, this is the first true display of the patience of a knight who refuses to rush into a mistake. Siegward is not stuck because he is foolish. He is stuck because he is carefully weighing the mechanics of the path ahead. His presence in the settlement is a breath of fresh air in an otherwise oppressive environment. Clad in his bulbous, shining armor, he stands out against the rot and the shadows, like a relic from a more hopeful time. When the player speaks to him, he does not respond with the cryptic warnings or the nihilistic laughter typical of other NPCs. Instead, he is polite, articulate, and entirely focused on the logistical problem at hand. He treats the player as a fellow traveler and an equal, establishing a rapport that is based on mutual curiosity rather than the usual transactions of the soul. The lift puzzle itself is a metaphor for Siegward's entire journey. It is a problem that requires observation and the willingness to look beyond the obvious. While a more impulsive warrior might have tried to leap into the pit or force the machinery, Siegward sits and waits, trusting that a solution will present itself to a patient mind. This quality of character is what has allowed him to survive the literal end of the world. He understands that in a land of traps and illusions, the most dangerous thing one can do is move without thinking. When the player eventually helps him solve the mystery of the lift, Siegward is genuinely appreciative, though he does not allow himself to be hurried. He notes the beauty of the view and the importance of taking a moment to breathe before moving on to the next challenge. This encounter sets the tone for his entire questline. He is a knight of routine and ritual, a man who understands that the journey is just as important as the destination. He is not in a race to reach the profaned capital. He is on a pilgrimage of honor. It is during this first meeting that we see his commitment to his physical well-being and his equipment. He is meticulous about his armor and his supplies, understanding that his survival depends on the maintenance of his gear. He is a professional soldier who happens to be a very kind man. His arrival in the settlement marks the beginning of a partnership that will eventually save the player's life. For he is the anchor of humanity in a place where humanity has been discarded, a reminder that even in the undead settlement, a knight's honor can still shine through. Ultimately, the meeting at the lift gift is the foundation of the player's bond with the Onion Knight. It establishes Siegward as a character of substance and depth, a man who is far more than the comical appearance of his armor suggests. He is a thinker, a strategist, and a loyal friend who is just beginning the final leg of a very long journey. As he heads toward the top of the tower to confront the fire demon, he does so with the same calm, iron-willed resolve that has guided him through every battle of his long and honorable life. Part 8. The First Victory. The battle against the fire demon in the undead settlement is the first time the player sees Siegward in action, and it is a masterclass in bravery and communal survival. As the massive, burning creature stalks through the ruins below, Siegward does not hesitate to throw himself into the fray. He leaps from the ledge with a roar, his heavy armor clanking as he charges the beast. He does not ask the player for help, but he welcomes it, fighting with a synchronized grace that suggests he is used to working as part of a team. He is a mountain of steel that refuses to be intimidated by the flames. During the fight, Siegward's combat style is a perfect reflection of his character. He is slow and deliberate, using his massive Zweihander to deliver crushing blows while relying on his rounded armor to shrug off the demon's fire. He does not panic when the creature strikes. He simply readjusts his stance and waits for the next opening. He is a rock in the middle of a burning river, providing a stable point around which the player can navigate the chaos of the battle. This first victory together cements a bond of blood and fire that will last until the very end of the game. Once the demon is slain, Siegward's reaction is not one of arrogant triumph, but of quiet satisfaction and camaraderie. He does not hoard the glory or the spoils of the battle. Instead, he immediately turns to the player and offers a toast. He produces a bottle of Siegbräu, a special brew from his homeland that is said to have restorative properties. By sharing this drink, Siegward is performing an act of communal survival, turning a moment of violence into a moment of human connection. He is teaching the player that the only way to survive the dark is together. The act of sitting down to drink and eventually nap after the battle is one of the most significant character moments in the series. It is a radical rejection of the frantic, soul-hungry pace of the world. In a land where everyone is rushing toward their own destruction, Siegward insists on taking a moment to appreciate the victory and the company of a friend. This ritual of the toast and the nap is his way of preserving his sanity. He is proving that even in a world of monsters, there is still time for a fine brew and a bit of rest. This victory also serves to prove Siegward's physical capabilities. He is not just a bumbling traveler. He is a formidable warrior who can hold his own against a demon of the ancient world. The player realizes that Siegward is a valuable ally, a man of his word who will stand by you when the fire gets hot. His willingness to share his resources and his rest creates a sense of loyalty in the player that few other characters in the game can match. He becomes the one person you can truly count on in the nightmare of Lothric. The theme of communal survival established here is what will eventually lead the player to follow Siegward through the cathedral, the dungeon, and finally to the capital. The first victory is the moment the player stops being a lone wanderer and starts being part of a journey. Siegward's joviality and his iron resolve are contagious, providing the player with the motivation to keep moving forward. He is the knight who reminds us that even when we are fighting demons, we should never forget to celebrate the fact that we are still alive. Part 9. The meaning of shared estus and toasts. In the grueling landscape of the kingdom of Lothric, where every encounter feels like a desperate struggle for a few more moments of existence, the concept of a shared drink takes on a near-holy significance. To an undead traveler, Estus is more than just a curative. It is the physical distillation of life and warmth, the only thing that keeps the cold hollow at bay. When Siegward offers a toast, he is not merely being social. He is inviting the player into a ritual of humanization. He refuses to let the world turn him into a mindless beast, and by extension, he refuses to let the player become one either. He treats the act of drinking as a moment of profound resistance against the encroaching dark. This shared experience serves to anchor the player's identity in a way that grand speeches or divine quests never could. By sitting down together, the Knight of Catarina creates a temporary sanctuary that is immune to the horrors lurking just beyond the ruins. He proves that even in a world where gods have abandoned their thrones and the very earth is folding in on itself, a simple toast can restore the spirit. He humanizes the player by treating them not as a weapon or a pawn, but as a person deserving of rest and companionship. This is the true power of Siegward's optimism. It is a shield that protects the mind as much as his armor protects the body. The act of napping after the brew is perhaps the most radical display of his character's strength. To sleep in such a world is to be vulnerable. Yet Siegward does so with a calm confidence that suggests he is entirely at peace with his choices. He shows that one can find contentment even in the shadow of the abyss. This routine of the toast, followed by a nap, is his way of maintaining a sense of normalcy in a reality that has long since abandoned it. He is teaching the player that survival is not just about the length of one's life, but the quality of the moments spent within it. Siegward's insistence on these small ceremonies acts as a powerful counterbalance to the nihilism that infects almost everyone else in the lands between. While other survivors are driven by greed, fear, or a desire for cosmic power, the Onion Knight is driven by the simple joy of a shared brew. He turns the mechanic of the Estus flask into a bridge between two souls. This communal approach to survival is what makes him so unique. He does not want to transcend the world. He simply wants to live in it with honor and a bit of warmth. The toast is also a symbol of equality. Siegward does not care about the player's origin, their past sins, or their future destiny. In the moment of the toast, both are simply travelers sharing a fire. This lack of judgment is a rare mercy in a world defined by the harsh laws of the flame and the dark. He offers his friendship freely, without expectation of reward, proving that altruism can still exist even when the fire is nearly out. He is the only character who consistently seeks to nourish the player's soul as well as their body. Ultimately, these shared moments define the player's emotional connection to the quest. We do not follow Siegward because we have to, but because we want to return to that feeling of companionship. He becomes the moral center of the journey, a reminder that the world is worth saving only because of the people within it. The shared Estus and the final sleepy toast are the building blocks of a loyalty that will eventually lead the player to stand by his side in the most dangerous place in the world. He proves that a toast is more than a drink. It is a promise that you are not alone. Section 3. Everything falls apart. Part 10. Trapped in the Well. The journey takes a dark and humiliating turn when we find Siegward in a state of unprecedented vulnerability, trapped at the bottom of a stone well outside the Cathedral of the Deep. It is a jarring sight to see the once proud knight without his iconic, bulbous armor. He is a man stripped of his physical defense and his social identity, reduced to a shivering figure in the dark. This moment represents the absolute lowest point for a Knight of Catarina, as his pride and his purpose are inextricably tied to the steel he wears. Without his armor, he is not just defenseless. He is incomplete, a warrior without a role. He pauses before responding to our call from above. giving that low, measured hum he uses when he is thinking through the shame of his situation, rather than reacting with anger. Even in the depths of a well, his patience remains his greatest asset. He does not scream for help or panic. He explains his predicament with a dignified, albeit embarrassed, clarity. He knows that his armor has been stolen, and with it, his ability to fulfill his oath. The well is not just a physical prison. It is a symbolic one, representing the stagnation that occurs when a knight's honor is compromised by trickery. The theft of his armor is an attack on his very soul. To Siegward, the Catarina set is more than just protection. It is a testament to his lineage and his personal history. Being tricked out of it by a common thief is a blow to his ego that he struggles to process. Yet, even in this state, he does not blame the player or the world for his misfortune. He remains focused on the practical reality of his situation, hoping for the return of his gear so that he may resume his pilgrimage. His resilience is tested here more than in any battle, as he must endure the cold and the dark while naked and ashamed. This predicament serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of sincerity in a world ruled by cynicism. Siegward's trusting nature, which makes him such a wonderful companion, is exactly what allowed him to be lured into a trap. The well is the physical consequence of his goodness. It shows that in the kingdom of Lothric, even the most honorable knights can be brought low by those who value nothing but their own gain. The contrast between Siegward's honesty and the cruelty of his captor is a central theme of this chapter. The player's role in this moment transitions from an equal partner to a savior. Rescuing Siegward from the well is a mission of restoration, an attempt to give back the dignity that was stolen from him. We realize that without the Onion Knight, the world feels significantly colder. His absence from the road is a tangible loss, and the effort to retrieve his armor becomes a personal quest for the player. We are not just helping a friend. We are attempting to protect the last remaining spark of sincerity in a world of lies. Ultimately, the time spent in the well is a period of forced reflection for Siegward. It is the moment where his journey almost ends in a whimper. But his refusal to give up, even when he has nothing left but his voice and his hum, is what allows him to eventually rise again. He proves that while armor can be stolen, the knight beneath it is made of something far more durable than steel. The well is a trial of his spirit, a dark passage that he must navigate before he can face the final challenge that awaits him in the capital. Part 11. Unbreakable Patches. The architect of Siegward's humiliation is the infamous trickster known as Unbreakable Patches, a man who has survived the ages by preying on the hopes and the honesty of others. Patches is the living embodiment of the world's cynicism, a vulture who thrives in the wreckage of fallen kingdoms. He lured Siegward into a trap not for gold or glory, but seemingly out of a deep-seated hatred for the knight's sincerity. To a man like Patches, Siegward's optimism is an offensive delusion that must be crushed. The theft of the Catarina armor was an act of ideological sabotage, an attempt to prove that nice guys have no place in a dying world. Patches represents the predatory nature of the undead curse, where survival often comes at the expense of others. He views the Knights of Catarina as bumbling fools whose armor is better suited for a marketplace than a battlefield. By stealing Siegward's identity and casting him into a well, and Patches is asserting his own worldview, one where the only truth is the struggle for oneself. He mocks the knight's honor and his onion appearance, using the armor as a costume to further deceive the player. This masquerade is a direct violation of everything Siegward stands for. turning a symbol of protection into a tool of betrayal. The relationship between Patches and Siegward is a perfect microcosm of the struggle between hope and despair. Patches is unbreakable because he has no heart left to break. He has abandoned his humanity to become a perfect survivor. Siegward, on the other hand, is vulnerable precisely because he still cares. He is a man who can be hurt because he still believes in promises and friendship. The fact that Patches targets him specifically shows that the trickster recognizes Siegward as a threat to his cynical philosophy. If a man like Siegward can succeed, then Patches' entire way of life is a mistake. Despite the gravity of the trick, Patches is a character who cannot be easily dismissed as a simple villain. He is a mirror to the player's own potential for ruthlessness. He challenges us to decide what kind of person we will be in this nightmare. Will we embrace the cynicism of Patches and leave Siegward in the well, or will we uphold the sincerity that the night represents? The encounter with the trickster is a moral crossroads, forcing us to choose which version of humanity we wish to preserve as the fire fades. When confronted, Patches often offers excuses or feigned apologies, but his nature never truly changes. He is a creature of the shadows, always looking for the next opportunity to trip up the righteous. His survival across multiple games and eras suggests that cynicism is an incredibly durable force. Yet, his inability to truly break Siegward's spirit is his greatest failure. He may steal the steel, but he can never steal the resolve. The Onion Knight remains a knight, even in his undergarments, while Patches remains a scavenger, even in the finest armor. Ultimately, Patches serves as the necessary antagonist to Siegward's virtue. He provides the resistance that makes the knight's eventual triumph so meaningful. Without the cruelty of the trickster, we might take Siegward's kindness for granted. Patches reminds us that honor is a choice that must be made every day, often in the face of those who would mock it. The rescue of the knight and the retrieval of the armor is a victory over everything Patches stands for, a reassertion that sincerity is a strength, not a weakness, in the face of the dark. Part 12. Importance of the armor. To a knight of Catarina, his armor is far more than a collection of metal plates. It is his second skin, his family history, and his social standing all forged into a single silhouette. In the world of Dark Souls, where physical form is often the only thing keeping an undead from dissolving into a nameless hollow, the specific design of one's gear acts as an anchor for the self. The bulbous onion set is a recognized brand of honor across many lands. Without it, Siegward is stripped of his ability to communicate his intent to the world. He becomes just another shivering hollow in the dark, lost to the same anonymity that has consumed so many others. The armor also represents the technical mastery of his homeland, a physical manifestation of a culture that refuses to be forgotten. Each piece is engineered to parry the blows of giants and demons, serving as a mechanical extension of the knight's iron-willed resolve. To lose this equipment is to lose the very tools he needs to fulfill his promise to Yorm. He cannot face the Lord of Cinder in rags. The task requires the specific weight and protection that only his Catarina steel can provide. The armor is the literal vessel for his duty, the heavy shell that allows him to carry the burden of his oath. Furthermore, the armor is a shield against the psychological rot of the undead curse. By maintaining his gear and polishing the rounded surfaces, Siegward is maintaining a routine that keeps his mind sharp. The act of wearing the armor is an act of defiance, a statement that he is still a knight of the realm. When he is trapped in the well without it, his hum is low and measured, because he is fighting a battle within himself to keep his identity intact. He knows that if he accepts his state of nakedness, he is one step closer to forgetting who he is and why he is there. The design of the armor, so often mocked, is actually a testament to the iron-willed optimism of his people. It is built to endure, to deflect, and to survive. It does not seek to intimidate or to project a false image of slim elegance. It is honest, bulky, and effective. This mirrors Siegward's own personality. He is a man who takes up space and who refuses to be ignored or easily moved. The armor is the physical manifestation of his heavy presence in a world that is increasingly thin and ethereal. When we see Patches wearing the armor, the violation feels deeply personal. The armor is being used to commit the very types of sins that it was designed to protect against. It is a desecration of the Catarina legacy. The suit becomes a costume of betrayal, a hollow shell that lacks the spirit of the man who should be inside it. This reinforces the idea that the armor and the knight are a single unit. One cannot function correctly without the other. The armor requires the heart of a knight to give it meaning, and the knight requires the armor to give his heart a defense. Ultimately, the importance of the armor lies in its role as a symbol of restoration. When the player finally tosses the set down into the well, we are not just giving back equipment, we are returning a soul. We are allowing Siegward to be himself once again. The sound of the plates clanking as he dons them is the sound of hope returning to the cathedral. Armed once more, he can stand tall and hum with a new sense of purpose. He is no longer a victim of the well. He is the Knight of Catarina, ready to fulfill a promise that is older and heavier than the steel he wears. Part 13. Rescue and Restoration. The act of returning the Catarina armor to Siegward in the well is one of the most satisfying moments of restoration in the entire series. It is a simple gesture that carries immense weight as it marks the turning point where the knight regains his agency. As the heavy pieces of steel descend into the darkness of the well, the player is essentially signaling their commitment to Siegward's journey. We are refusing to let him be forgotten in the dark. The transformation that occurs once he is clad again is instantaneous. His voice regains its warmth, and his outlook returns to the steady, patient optimism that defines him. Interestingly, once Siegward is restored, he does not express a burning desire for revenge against Patches. A lesser man would have climbed out of that well with a bloodthirsty focus on the one who tricked him. But Siegward is governed by a higher calling. He pauses to consider the lesson learned, giving a low, measured hum as he acknowledges his own folly in being so easily deceived. He treats the betrayal as a minor obstacle on a much more important path. His focus remains entirely on his oath to Yorm, proving that his honor is not easily swayed by personal slights. This refusal to seek vengeance is a profound display of his iron-willed resolve. He understands that time spent hunting a thief is time spent away from the profaned capital. He chooses to forgive, or at least to ignore, the transgression in favor of getting back to work. This maturity is rare among the warriors of Lothric, who are often consumed by their own petty grievances. Siegward's dignity is restored not through the blood of his enemy, but through the reassumption of his duty. He climbs out of the well not as a victim, but as a knight who has merely been delayed. The restoration also resets the theme of communal survival. By helping him, the player has proven themselves to be a true ally, a fact that Siegward acknowledges with genuine heartiness. He does not dwell on the humiliation. He focuses on the gratitude he feels toward his savior. This reinforces the bond between the two characters, making the final stages of the quest feel like a shared destiny. We have seen him at his worst, and by helping him back to his best, we have earned a place at his side for the challenges to come. From a narrative perspective, this rescue is the moment where Siegward's linear nature is most evident. While other characters might have been broken by such a humiliation or turned into bitter versions of themselves, Siegward remains exactly who he has always been. He gets back to his fine brews and his Ester soup, using his familiar routines to wash away the memory of the well. He is a man who knows how to recover from a blow, whether it comes from a giant's club or a trickster's words. Ultimately, the rescue and restoration of the Onion Knight serve to rehumanize the world. In a land defined by theft and betrayal, the player's act of selfless help stands out as a rare light. It proves that even in the Cathedral of the Deep, a place of profound corruption, honor can be restored. Siegward's return to the road is a victory for everyone who still believes in promises. Clad once more in his masterfully engineered steel, he is ready to face the cold streets of Irithyll and the dark dungeon that lies beyond, his eyes fixed firmly on the giant king who awaits his arrival. Section 4. Irithyll and Imprisonment. Part 14. Cold Streets of Irithyll. As Siegward pushes forward into the boreal valley of Irithyll, he enters a landscape that is as beautiful as it is deadly. The city is a place of frozen perfection, ruled by the cold authority of Pontiff Sulivan and haunted by the ghosts of a dead age. While the player struggles against the lethal knights and the terrifying beasts of the snow, Siegward finds a way to maintain his presence in the most human way possible. He is found in a warm kitchen, tucked away from the freezing winds, where he has taken the time to brew a massive pot of Ester soup. His presence in the kitchen is a direct reflection of his role as a provider and a nourisher. In a city that offers nothing but death and frostbite, Siegward offers heat and sustenance. He is the only NPC who consistently seeks to nourish the player, providing a bowl of soup that restores health and provides a moment of respite. This mirrors how he likely once nourished the spirit of Yorm during their long friendship. He understands that the soul cannot fight on an empty stomach, and he treats the act of cooking as a vital part of his nightly duty. The warmth of the kitchen stands in stark contrast to the cold streets outside. It is a small pocket of Catarina spirit in the heart of a boreal nightmare. Siegward sits by the fire, entirely unbothered by the chaos of the city, focusing instead on the seasoning of his broth. He pauses before speaking, giving that low, measured hum as he tastes his creation, ensuring it is just right for his fellow traveler. This commitment to the small things is what keeps him from being consumed by the grand, terrifying scale of Irithyll's tragedy. Furthermore, Siegward's journey through the valley is remarkable because he is doing it alone. While the player is the one doing the heavy lifting in many parts of the game, Siegward is clearly making his own way, navigating the same dangers and finding his own path to the goal. He is not a sidekick. He is a peer. His presence in Irithyll shows that his resolve is not dependent on the player's presence. He is a knight of his word, and he will reach the profaned capital whether he has help or not. The Ester soup also serves as a symbolic toast to the resilience of life. It is a mixture of the divine, Estus, and the mundane, soup, a combination that perfectly encapsulates Siegward's own nature. He is a divine knight with a very mundane love for comfort and food. By providing this soup to the player, he is sharing the very thing that keeps him sane. He is inviting us into his world once again, reminding us that even in the coldest city on earth, there is still room for a warm meal and a friendly face. The kitchen in Irithyll is one of the most memorable locations in the game because of the feeling of safety it provides. For a brief moment, the hunt for the lords is forgotten, replaced by the simple pleasure of a hot bowl of soup. Siegward's presence turns a hostile environment into a home. He proves that the spirit of Catarina is not just about armor and swords. It is about the ability to create warmth wherever you go. As he finishes his meal and prepares for the dark dungeons ahead, he leaves the player with a full belly and a renewed sense of purpose. Part 15, Silver Night Illusion. The kitchen where Siegward rests is surrounded by the ghosts of the past, specifically the Silver Knights of Anor Londo. These knights are the echoes of a heroic age, standing as silent guardians in a city that has long since lost its way. They represent the golden past, a time when gods walked the earth and the fire was strong. Siegward's presence among them is a powerful bridge between that lost era and the rotten present. He wears the heavy steel of a knightly order that still maintains its honor, making him a living relic in a city of illusions. The Silver Knights are part of the grand deception of Irithel, a city that uses beauty and tradition to hide the horrific reality of the deep and the corruption of the pontiff. They are hollowed-out versions of their former selves, acting as obstacles rather than protectors. Siegward, however, is the real thing. He is not an illusion or a ghost. He is a man of flesh, blood, and iron-willed optimism. He stands out against the sterile, cold perfection of the Silver Knights as something vibrant and messy and real. He is the proof that true knighthood is not about standing in a pose for eternity, but about the willingness to keep moving forward. The proximity of the Silver Knights to the warm kitchen creates a strange tension. While the knights represent the rigid, cold duty of the old world, Siegward represents a duty that is fueled by warmth and friendship. He does not seek to be a statue in a hallway. He seeks to be a man at a table. He pauses to consider the history of the place, giving that low, measured hum as he glances at the portraits of the ancient lords. But he does not let the weight of the past overwhelm him. He respects the history, but he is more concerned with the current state of his soup. This encounter reinforces the idea that Siegward is the true successor to the heroic tradition. While the gods have fled and their knights have turned into shadows, Siegward is still here, fulfilling a promise that actually matters. He is the bridge that carries the concept of honor into the end times. He proves that you don't need a golden palace or a divine mandate to be a hero. You just need to keep your word and help those you meet along the way. His joviality is a more effective weapon against the dark than all the silver spears in Irithel. The illusion of Irithel is designed to make travelers lose their way and forget their purpose. Many NPCs in the series go hollow when they lose their connection to the present. Siegward's focus on nourishing himself and the player is his way of cutting through the illusion. By focusing on the tangible reality of heat and food, he stays grounded. The Silver Knights are trapped in a loop of the past, but Siegward is moving toward a future, however grim it may be. He is the only hero left in a city of monuments. Ultimately, the Silver Knight encounter highlights the sincerity of the Onion Knight. In a place where everything is a lie or a ghost, his presence is an undeniable truth. He is the anchor that allows the player to see through the boreal fog. As we leave the warmth of his kitchen and the silent gaze of the Silver Knights, we carry with us a piece of his resolve. He has bridged the gap between the legends of old and the reality of the now, to proving that the spirit of a knight is something that lives in the heart, not in the silver plating of a dead god's halls. Part 16. Locked in the Cell. The final obstacle before the reach of the profaned capital is the Erithil dungeon, a subterranean nightmare of iron, screams, and the terrifying jailers who can drain the very life from a traveller's body. It is here that Siegward is eventually captured once again, thrown into a high cell that looks out over the toxic swamp of the profaned capital. It is a moment that could easily lead to despair, as he is so close to his destination, yet separated from it by iron bars. Yet when we find him, he is not rattling the cage or weeping in the dark. He is having a bit of a nap, waiting with the terrifying patience of his order. He pauses before responding to our presence at the bars, giving that low, measured hum that signals he is already calculating the next move, rather than reacting to the frustration of his imprisonment. He explains that he has gotten himself into quite a pickle, using his characteristic understatement to describe a life-threatening situation. Even behind bars, in a place designed to break the mind, he remains stubbornly jovial. He is not waiting for a miracle. He is simply waiting for his moment. He understands that in a dungeon, the one who panics is the one who dies first. His imprisonment in the dungeon is a testament to the fact that his journey is a physical and dangerous reality. He has fought his way through the Boreal Valley and survived the horrors of the jailers, only to be tripped up at the very end. But even here, his honor is his shield. He does not beg the player for release. He simply notes that he is stuck and would be grateful for any assistance. He maintains his dignity as a knight of Catarina, even when his only view is of the charred graveyard of his friend's kingdom. The cell itself is a metaphor for the state of the world, cold, dark, and restrictive. But Siegward's presence turns the cell into a temporary rest stop. He is the only character who can make a dungeon feel like a place where one could reasonably take a nap. This ability to transform his environment is his greatest strength. He refuses to be defined by his cage. He is still a knight on a mission, and the bars are merely a delay, not a conclusion. His humming in the dark is the sound of a resolve that the jailers can never drain. The rescue from the cell is the final act of restoration before the climax of the story. By finding the old cell key and unlocking his door, the player is removing the last barrier between Siegward and his destiny. The gratitude he expresses is profound, but he does not waste time on long speeches. He has a promise to keep. The urgency of his mission begins to overshadow his joviality, as the shadow of the profaned capital looms large. He prepares his gear one last time, his eyes fixed on the massive silhouette of the giant king in the distance. The dungeon cell is the final trial of Siegward's patience. It proves that he never abandoned his oath, even when it seemed impossible to fulfill. He did not turn back, he did not go hollow, and he did not seek an easier path. He waited in the dark until the door opened, ready to step out and finish what he started lifetimes ago. As he leaves the dungeon and begins the descent into the capital, he is no longer just a companion. He is a man on the verge of fulfilling a promise that will shake the very foundations of the world. Part 17. A knight who never abandoned his oath. The most remarkable quality of Siegward's long trek through the collapsing geography of Lothric is his absolute linearity of purpose. In a world where every other traveller seems to succumb to the weight of their own failures, Siegward remains a constant. Most heroes the player meets eventually suffer a fracturing of the mind. They lose their goals, they turn against their friends, or they simply sit down and wait for the end to take them. Siegward, however, possesses a spirit that seems immune to the existential rot of the undead curse. His internal compass is locked onto a single coordinate, and no matter how many times he is diverted, he always finds his way back to the path leading to his old friend. He pauses as he looks out toward the horizon from the dungeon's heights, she giving that low, measured hum that marks his recognition of the finality of his task. He is not a man who changes his mind. While others might have seen the state of the world and decided that a promise made to a giant was no longer worth the effort, Siegward views the chaos as a reason to be even more steadfast. His oath is the only thing that still makes sense in a reality that has stopped following the rules. It is his anchor, his North Star, and his ultimate reason for breathing. This unwavering nature stands in sharp contrast to the hollowing process that defines the series. Hollowing is often triggered by the loss of one's inner purpose, the fading of the drive that keeps the soul tethered to the flesh. Siegward's purpose is so heavy and so specific that it acts as a physical weight, preventing his soul from drifting away. He does not seek the throne for himself, nor does he seek to change the world's destiny. He is simply a man who has a job to do, and he treats that job with the same methodical care that he applies to a pot of soup. Even when he was trapped in a well or locked in a cage, his commitment never wavered. He never expressed a desire to turn back to the safety of Catarina or to abandon the mission in favor of a quieter life. He represents the eternal night, a figure whose honor is not a seasonal affectation, but a permanent state of being. His consistency provides the player with a rare sense of stability. In a game where everything is shifting and dying, you can always count on Siegward to be exactly where he said he would be, doing exactly what he said he would do. His journey is a testament to the power of routine and simple values. He does not grapple with complex theological questions or the politics of the linking of the fire. He relies on the basics: a warm fire, a good brew, a long nap, and the word of a friend. These simple things provide him with a resilience that the great heroes of the age lacked. By focusing on the small, human elements of life, he has protected himself from the cosmic horror that drove the Lords of Cinder to madness. He is the only character who reaches the end of his journey with his soul entirely intact. Ultimately, Siegward's refusal to abandon his oath is what makes him a legend in the eyes of the player. He is the personification of unbreakable, in a much truer sense than Patches could ever hope to be. He has traveled from the undead settlement to the very depths of the earth without losing his way or his heart. As he steps out of the dungeon and prepares for the final walk across the bridge to the profaned capital, he carries with him the hopes of everyone who believes that honor is still possible in a dying world. Section 5. The Final Ascent. Part 18. Road to the Capital. The descent into the profaned capital is a journey into the heart of a physical and spiritual apocalypse. As Siegward and the player move toward the center of the ruins, the scale of Yorm's tragedy becomes impossible to ignore. The capital is not just a city, it is a scorched graveyard where the very stone seems to have been melted by an unnatural heat. Piles of charred remains litter the streets, and the gold of the treasury has been fused together by the eruption of the profaned flame. It is a place where time has stopped, and where the air is thick with the scent of old ash and silent screams. Siegward pauses as he takes in the sight of the devastation, giving that low, measured hum that conveys a grief far deeper than any words could express. He is finally seeing the reality that broke his friend's heart. He walks through the ruins with a heavy tread, his armor clanking softly in the oppressive silence. He is no longer making jokes or offering toasts. The proximity of his goal has brought a solemnity to his presence that we have not seen before. He is a man walking toward a funeral, and he knows that he is the one who must perform the final rites. The road to the capital is a path of isolation. While the player has fought through legions of enemies to get here, the final approach feels lonely and desolate. The few survivors in the area are mindless and hostile, serving only as reminders of what the people of this city used to be. For Siegward, this walk must be a series of memories. He likely remembers the capital when it was a place of light and life, and when Yhorm stood as its proud protector. To see it reduced to this charred husk is a blow that tests his iron-willed optimism to its absolute breaking point. As the massive tower containing the throne room looms in the distance, the atmospheric weight of the location begins to press down on the night. The profaned capital is a monument to a sacrifice that failed, a place where a king gave his life for a people who were already lost. Siegward understands that Yhorm is not just a lord of cinder, he is a prisoner of his own grief. The road to the capital is the final stretch of a journey to liberate a friend from the ruins of his own kingdom. Every step forward is an act of love and an act of execution. The environmental storytelling of the capital reinforces the idea that the old world is truly dead. There is no hope for restoration here, only the necessity of an ending. Siegward's presence is the only thing that feels alive in this sea of ash. He is the only bridge left between the past and the present. He does not falter as he approaches the bridge leading to the throne room, despite the terrifying scale of the adversary waiting for him. He has spent the entire game preparing for this walk, and he will not let the horror of the ruins turn him away. The road to the profaned capital is the climax of Siegward's character arc. He is no longer the jovial onion knight. He is the avenging brother, the man who has come to settle a debt of honor. He carries the Storm Ruler not with the excitement of a warrior, but with the weary determination of a man who is ready to say goodbye. The descent into the dark heart of the capital is the final test of his promise, a journey into the center of a nightmare to bring a single, mercy-filled light to his oldest friend. Part 19. Yhorm, Lord of Cinder. When the player and Siegward finally cross the threshold into the massive throne room, they are met with the sight of Yhorm the giant in his most tragic form. He is no longer the noble king who shielded his people. He is a colossal, glowing husk of a man, radiating an intense, unnatural heat. He sits upon a throne that is far too large for anything human, and surrounded by the ash of his former subjects. He is a being of pure, mindless energy, his soul having been partially consumed by the flame he tried to link. He is the ultimate lord of cinder, a giant who has become a living furnace in a graveyard. The most striking change in Yhorm's appearance is his abandonment of the Great Shield. The tool he once used to protect the weak has been discarded, left to rot in some forgotten corner of the city. In its place, he wields a giant, notched machete that he uses with a terrifying, singular focus on destruction. He does not speak. He does not recognize his friend, and he does not hesitate. He is a mountain of ash and fire that has been programmed to kill anything that enters his sanctuary. He is the physical manifestation of a world gone wrong, a protector turned into a predator. As he rises from his throne, the floor shakes with every step, and the air in the room becomes almost too hot to breathe. He is a creature that has been broken by the irony of his own existence. He linked the fire to save his city, only for the act of linking to consume everyone he loved. Now he waits for the end, lashing out at any unkindled who would dare to ask him to burn again. He is not a villain in the traditional sense. He is a victim of a cosmic system that demands everything and gives nothing in return. Siegward pauses as he stands at the entrance, giving that low, measured hum that signals the moment of truth has arrived. He looks up at the towering figure of his friend and sees the monster that Yorm was so afraid of becoming. The sight of the giant in this state is the final confirmation that the promise must be fulfilled. There is no saving Yhorm in the traditional sense. There is only the mercy of a quick and honorable death. The giant king has become a prisoner of his own immortality, and Siegward is the only one who holds the key to his cell. The fight against Yhorm is not a battle of skill, but a battle of memory. Every blow from the giant's machete is a reminder of the strength he once used for good. The throne room is a stage for the final act of a tragedy that has been playing out for centuries. Yorm's mindless violence is a cry for help, a desperate plea for an ending that the fire has denied him. He is a lord of cinder who has nothing left to burn but his own history, and he does so with a fury that threatens to consume the world. Ultimately, Yhorm represents the final failure of the Golden Order. He was the perfect king who was destroyed by the very system he served. His presence in the profaned capital is a stain on the history of the world, a reminder that the fire is a cruel and indifferent master. As the battle begins, the tragedy of the giant reaches its peak. He is the friend who must be killed, the king who must be dethroned, and the lord who must be laid to rest. The stage is set for the most emotional confrontation in the series, as the Onion Knight steps forward to keep his word. Part 20. Storm Ruler and the Weight of Memory. The Storm Ruler is not a conventional weapon. It is a specialized tool of divine execution, designed specifically to bring a giant to his knees. It is a sword that harnesses the power of the wind, creating a localized hurricane that can shatter the iron-like skin of a titan. However, for Siegward, the weapon carries a weight far beyond its physical mass. It is a physical manifestation of the memory of his friendship. Every time he raises the sword and charges its power, he is tapping into the trust that Yorm placed in him lifetimes ago. The sword is a burden of the heart, a constant reminder of the duty he has traveled so far to perform. In the heat of the battle, the Storm Ruler is the only thing that can cut through the giant's formidable defenses. While the player's conventional weapons might do little more than scratch Yhorm's ankles, the wind-cleaving strikes of the Storm Ruler can stagger the Lord of Cinder, forcing him to bow his head. This mechanic is deeply symbolic. The giant is brought low by the very air he breathes, and by the very weapon he gave to his friend. It is a fight where the king's own foresight is used against his current, mindless state. It is a choreography of mercy, where the wind serves to put out a fire that has burned for too long. As Siegward wields the sword, he does so with a precision and a solemnity that stands in contrast to his earlier, more relaxed combat style. He is no longer just a warrior. He is a specialist performing a delicate operation. He pauses as the sword gathers the storm, giving that low, measured hum that echoes through the throne room as the wind begins to howl. He is a man who is entirely focused on the mechanics of his task. He understands that if he fails to time his strikes, he will be crushed by his friend's machete. The sword is his only protection and his only way forward. The weight of the weapon is also a psychological one. Siegward knows that every strike from the Storm Ruler is a step closer to the permanent death of the man he loved. The sword does not just deal damage, it erases a history. By using the Storm Ruler, Siegward is fulfilling the mercy-killing pact they made in the fire. He is the only one who can carry this weight because he is the only one who truly understands what it represents. To any other warrior, it is just a powerful artifact. To Siegward, it is a key to a grave. During the battle, The wind generated by the sword creates a chaotic, ethereal atmosphere in the throne room. The ash of the dead citizens is stirred up into a frenzy, circling the combatants like ghosts. It is as if the entire city is watching the final moments of its king. The Storm Ruler acts as a bridge between the physical world and the spiritual tragedy of the capital. It is a weapon that can touch the soul of a giant, providing a final, clean ending to a life that had become a jagged, burning mess. The Storm Ruler is the center of the finale. It is the tool that allows a mortal knight to stand before a god and win. But the victory it provides is a hollow one, for it results in the loss of a brother. Siegward's mastery of the sword is the final proof of his iron-willed resolve. He has kept the weapon polished and ready for years, never once tempted to use its power for his own gain. He saved it for this one moment, for this one person, proving that the most powerful thing a knight can carry is not a sword, but the memory of a promise. Part 21. Yehoram, old friend. The moment Siegward enters the throne room and speaks to the giant, the tone of the game undergoes a radical shift. The joviality that has defined him for hours vanishes instantly, replaced by a voice that is heavy with the exhaustion of 1,000 miles and the sorrow of an impending execution. His words are not those of a challenger, but of a man fulfilling a heartbreaking social obligation. "Yorm, old friend," he begins, and in those 3 words, the entire history of their bond is laid bare. He is addressing the man beneath the ash, speaking to a soul that he knows is still there, somewhere behind the glowing eyes. He pauses before his final declaration, giving that low, measured hum that acts as a final breath before the plunge into the abyss. "I, Siegward of the Knights of Catarina, have come to uphold my promise." This is a formal statement of intent, a knightly protocol that gives the coming violence a sense of legal and moral legitimacy. He is not just killing a monster, he is performing a duty. By announcing himself, he is attempting to give Yorm one last moment of clarity, a final recognition of the man who stayed true to him when the rest of the world turned to dust. The dialogue continues with a plea that is both a command and a prayer. Let the sun shine upon this Lord of Cinder. This phrase is a poignant reversal of the game's usual obsession with the dark. Siegward is asking for the light of truth and the peace of a natural ending to return to his friend. He wants the sun of Catarina's optimism to pierce the gloom of the profaned capital. It is a moment of supreme, desperate hope, the belief that even a Lord of Cinder deserves a final, beautiful moment before the end. As he prepares his stance, Siegward's movements are deliberate and heavy. He is no longer having a bit of a nap or worrying about his soup. He is a man who has reached the end of his road. The gravity of his voice carries the weight of everyone who has ever had to say a final goodbye. He is representing the human honor that refuses to let a friend suffer. To the player watching, it is clear that this is the most important conversation Siegward has ever had, and he is having it with a being that can no longer speak back. This confrontation is the emotional peak of the Dark Souls series, because it is so deeply personal. It is not about the fate of the fire or the destiny of the undead. It is about 2 friends. Siegward's voice provides the human heart that the world of Lothric so desperately lacks. He makes the fight matter by reminding us that the boss we are about to kill was once a person who loved and was loved. He turns a mechanical encounter into a tragic masterpiece, ensuring that Yorm's death will be felt as a loss rather than a triumph. The words, "Yorm, old friend," serve as the final anchor for the narrative. They connect the beginning of the world to the end of the quest. They remind us that even when the fire fades and the world breaks, the names of those we love still have power. Siegward steps forward, not as a conqueror, but as a brother, his heart heavy with the weight of the storm ruler, and his mind fixed on the son he hopes to bring to the dark throne room. The battle begins not with a roar of hate, but with a whisper of old, abiding friendship. Part 22. The promise fulfilled. The battle itself is a symphony of wind and fire, a high-stakes struggle where the player and Siegward must work in perfect synchronization to bring the giant down. As Yorm's massive machete slams into the ground, creating shockwaves of ash and flame, Siegward stands his ground, charging the storm ruler with a terrifying focus. When the wind finally releases, it strikes the giant with the force of a falling mountain, causing the Lord of Cinder to stumble and roar in a voice that sounds like grinding stone. In these moments, the promise is being actively forged into a physical reality. Together, the Unkindled and the Knight of Catarina chip away at the giant's remaining life, dodging the sweeping strikes and the bursts of profaned flame. Siegward fights with an intensity that we have not seen before, his heavy armor moving with a desperate clanking speed. He is not fighting for souls or for glory. He is fighting to get his friend home. Every successful strike from the storm ruler is a mercy, a chipping away of the ash that has encased Yorm's heart. The knight's resolve is the iron that binds the wind, ensuring that every blow counts. As Yorm's health reaches its end, the giant's movements become sluggish and pained. The fire in his chest begins to flicker out, replaced by the cool, grey peace of the storm. In his final moments, the Giant King seems to regain a fragment of his former self, his massive body slumping forward as the mindless rage finally dissipates. The promise has been kept. The monster is gone, and only the old friend remains, finally granted the rest that he was too loyal to seek for himself. It is a victory that feels like a tragedy, a triumphant ending that leaves a permanent hole in the world. Once the giant falls, the silence that fills the throne room is deafening. Siegward stands over the remains of his brother, his chest heaving under his heavy plating. He has done the impossible. He has travelled across a broken continent, survived dungeons and wells, and faced a god to keep a word made lifetimes ago. He has fulfilled the mercy-killing pact, ensuring that Yorm's legacy will not be one of madness, but of a quiet, honourable end. The Storm Ruler has done its work, and the weight of the promise is finally, mercifully lifted. The player stands beside him, a silent witness to a moment of supreme human honour. We realise that we were not the heroes of this fight. We were the support for a man who was completing his life's work. Siegward has proven that even in a world of cosmic horror, a single human promise can be more powerful than the Lords of Cinder. He has brought the sun to the profaned capital, even if it is only for a moment. The giant is at peace, and the knight has earned his rest. Ultimately, the fulfillment of the promise is the moral climax of the game. It is the moment where sincerity triumphs over the cynicism of the world. Siegward did not break, and he did not turn back. He faced the worst version of his friend and offered him the best version of himself. As the smoke clears from the throne room, the reality of what has been achieved begins to sink in. The Lord of Cinder has been laid to rest, and the knight who kept his word is left standing in the ash, a hero of a story that is finally, tragically over. Section 6. After the fire fades. Part 23. The cut to black. Following the cataclysmic battle and the death of Yorm, The atmosphere in the throne room shifts from one of violent conflict to one of quiet, exhausted finality. Siegward does not celebrate. He does not boast. He simply sits down one last time, his heavy armor clanking as he settles into the ash. He produces a final bottle of Siegbräu and invites the player to share in one last toast. It is a moment of profound, weary camaraderie. He thanks the player for their help, his voice returning to a soft, familiar warmth. Then, as he always does, he suggests a nap. As the player walks away from the throne room, moving toward the next lord or the final flame, a subtle but devastating event occurs. If you look back, or if you cross the threshold of the room, there is a sudden, sharp sound, the sound of armor falling to the stone. When you return to the spot where he sat, Siegward is gone. All that remains is his Catarina set, his shield, and the storm ruler, lying in a neat pile on the floor. There is no body, no blood, and no explanation. The game simply cuts the character's presence from the world, leaving a silent vacancy where a hero once sat. This cut to black is one of the most powerful narrative choices in the series. By not showing us his death, the game allows Siegward to remain a legend. He does not suffer a long, agonizing decline. He simply completes his task and ceases to be. It is a clean ending for a clean soul. The absence of a corpse suggests that he may have simply dissolved into ash the moment his duty was finished, his physical form no longer having a reason to resist the pull of the grave. He was held together by his duty, and once that duty was gone, so was he. The emptiness of the armor is a chilling visual. It reminds us that the man we knew was always the spirit inside the steel, not the steel itself. Without Siegward, the Catarina armor is just a collection of rounded plates, a comical shell that has lost its heart. The sight of the storm ruler lying abandoned on the floor is the final period at the end of the sentence. The weapon that brought down a giant has no further purpose, and neither does the knight who wielded it. The world has moved on, and Siegward has moved with it. For the player, this sudden disappearance is a moment of intense grief. We realize that the one constant in our journey is gone. The kitchen in Irithyll, the lift in the settlement, and the cell in the dungeon are now truly empty. We are left alone to face the final hours of the world. Siegward's exit is as polite and as understated as his entrance. He does not want to be a burden, so he simply departs once his work is done. He has given us his soup, his brew, and his friendship, and he has left us with the strength to continue. The cut to black is the perfect conclusion for a character defined by his honor. He did not seek a monument or a place in history. He fulfilled his promise, and then he let go. He proves that the greatest heroes are the ones who know when their story is over. As we pick up his armor and carry it forward, we are carrying the memory of a man who was too good for the world he lived in. He has earned his nap, and he has earned the right to disappear into the light he brought to the dark. Part 24. Siegward's Death. It is widely accepted among those who study the chronicles of Lothric that Siegward's disappearance is indeed his final death. The nature of the unkindled is that they are beings of ash, awakened to fulfill a specific task. Once that task is completed, the vitality that sustains them begins to fade. Siegward was not just an adventurer. He was a man living on borrowed time, fueled entirely by the promise he made to Yorm. The moment the giant fell and the soul was claimed, the mechanical and spiritual necessity of Siegward's life was extinguished. He died not of a wound, but of completion. His death is a peaceful one, a rare mercy in a world defined by suffering. He spent his final moments in the company of a friend, sharing a drink and celebrating a promise kept. He died with his honor intact and his mind clear. For an undead, this is the ultimate victory. He avoided the madness of hollowing and the corruption of the abyss. He remained Siegward of Catarina until the very last second. His death is a testament to the idea that a life well lived is more important than a life long lived. He pauses in our memory, giving that low, measured hum one last time as he closes his eyes. He has no more pickles to solve, no more soup to brew, and no more giants to kill. He is exhausted, but it is the exhaustion of a man who has run a good race. He chose to die rather than to linger in a world that no longer had a place for him. By leaving his armor behind, and he is offering his protection to the player, a final gift from a knight who has nothing left to give but his legacy. There is a theory that Siegward may have taken his own life to ensure he would never go hollow, but his character suggests a more natural, spiritual dissolution. He simply ran out of reason to be. He was a man of routine, and his routine was finished. To continue living without a goal would be a violation of his nature. He accepted his mortality with the same grace that he accepted his duty. He died a human death in a world of monsters, a final act of rebellion against the eternal, stagnant nature of the fire. The location of his death, the throne room of his best friend, is deeply symbolic. He returned to the place where his heart was, and he died at the feet of the brother he had come to save. He is reunited with Yhorm in the ash, two legends who are finally free from the burdens of their crowns and their oaths. The profaned capital is no longer a place of tragedy, it is a place of rest. Siegward's death turns the graveyard into a sanctuary, a final home for two weary travelers. Siegward's death is the most successful ending of any character in the series. He achieved everything he set out to do. He did not fail, he did not falter, and he did not lose his soul. He proved that even an unkindled can find a meaningful conclusion. As we look at the empty armor, we don't see a tragedy. We see a finished masterpiece. He was the knight who succeeded where everyone else failed, and he did so with a smile, a toast, and an unbreakable sense of honor. Part 25. Why Siegward succeeded where others failed. In the long and bloody history of the knights of the soul-starved lands, Siegward stands as a unique anomaly. Most heroes, from the tragic Oscar to the corrupted Artorias, eventually lose their way. They are broken by the scale of the cosmic horror they face, or they are seduced by the promise of power. They go hollow when their will is finally crushed by the weight of the dark. Siegward, however, used friendship and routine as a shield that was more effective than any steel plating. He succeeded because he refused to engage with the world on its own nihilistic terms. While other knights were obsessed with the grand destiny of the fire, Siegward focused on the immediate human needs of the present. He understood that you cannot save the world if you have forgotten how to be a person. His commitment to brewing soup and sharing toasts was not a distraction. It was his primary defense. By maintaining his humanity through these small rituals, he kept his soul anchored. He did not go hollow because he never allowed himself to become a mindless weapon. He remained a man who enjoyed a good nap, and that made him invincible. Furthermore, Siegward's success was built on the purity of his motivation. He did not want to be a lord, a god, or a legend. He only wanted to be a friend. This lack of ego protected him from the pitfalls that claimed his siblings and his peers. He had a linear goal that was immune to the shifting politics of Lothric. When your only purpose is to fulfill a promise to a brother, the temptations of the world lose their power. He was a man with a single, unyielding focus, and that focus saw him through the darkest dungeons and the highest peaks. He also possessed a humility that is rare among the warriors of the flame. He was willing to accept help from the player, and he was willing to admit when he was in a pickle. He did not allow his pride to lead him into isolation. By forming a bond with the player, he created a support system that ensured his success. He understood that communal survival is the only true survival. He succeeded because he wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, a quality that allowed him to be restored by the very friends he helped along the way. Contrast this with a character like Artorias, who attempted to face the abyss alone and was consumed by it. Siegward would have brought a pot of soup and a friend. This fundamental difference in philosophy is why Siegward is one of the few characters who actually finishes his quest. He proves that sincerity is a more durable force than cynicism. He did not need to be the strongest or the fastest. He only needed to be the most honorable. His success is a rebuke to every villain who believes that kindness is a weakness. Siegward succeeded because he was a whole person in a world of fragments. He carried the spirit of Catarina within him, a land of high spirits and iron resolve. He did not allow the environment to change him. He changed the environment by bringing warmth wherever he went. He is the standard against which all other knights should be measured. He proved that the secret to surviving the end of the world is not magic or souls, but the ability to stay true to yourself and your friends until the very last cut to black. Part 26. The Knight Who Kept His Word. We conclude our chronicle on the enduring image of the Catarina helm, rounded, strange, and undeniably noble. Siegward of Catarina proves that even in a world of cosmic horror, dying gods, and the literal unraveling of time and space, human honor remains the strongest force of all. He was the knight who kept his word in a world that had forgotten the meaning of the concept. He was the anchor of sincerity in a sea of betrayal. His story is not one of conquest or divinity, but of a man who simply did what he said he would do, no matter the cost. He pauses one last time in our thoughts, giving that low, measured hum that has become the soundtrack to our journey. He has shown us that the most important battles are often the ones fought for the smallest reasons. For a pot of soup, for a shared brew, or for the peace of a friend. He has humanized the nightmare of Lothrich, providing a sense of warmth and companionship that makes the struggle worthwhile. He is the proof that even when the fire fades, the spirit of a true knight can still shine as brightly as the sun he loved so much. The legacy he leaves behind is one of quiet, unassuming heroism. He does not ask for statues or songs. He only asks that we remember the toast and the nap. By leaving his armor for the player, he is passing the torch of honor to the next generation. He is inviting us to become the next Onion Knight, to carry the spirit of Catarina into the final hours of the world. He proves that a legend is not built on what you take from the world, but on what you give to it. He gave everything, including his life, to ensure that his friend died with dignity. As we look at the empty throne of Yorm and the discarded Storm Ruler, we realize that the world is a better place because Siegward was in it. He has left the lands between a little warmer and a little more honorable than he found it. He has shown us that the ending of a story is just as important as the beginning. He kept his promise, he fulfilled his duty, and he found his peace. He is the knight who succeeded because he never forgot what it meant to be a man. The image of the Catarina armor sitting in the ash of the profaned capital is the final verdict on the Age of Fire. It is a symbol of a world that is broken, but also a world where loyalty still matters. Siegward is the hero we didn't know we needed, the jovial warrior whose iron resolve saved our souls as much as his own. He is the knight of the fine brew and the solemn execution, a man of contradictions who was perfectly consistent in his love for his friends. Siegward's story is a reminder that our words have power. A promise made in fire is a bond that even the abyss cannot break. He has earned his eternal nap, and he has earned his place as the most beloved figure in the history of the dying world. As we step out of the throne room and face the final flame, we carry his spirit with us. Let the sun shine upon the Lord of Cinder, and let the memory of the knight who kept his word stay with us until the very end of time. The chronicle of the Onion Knight is over, but the warmth of his toast will linger forever.